actively engaged in participating in this culture of resistance. So I have high hopes.
But you remember the time in World War II, and there were Germans that were questioned, German soldiers, who do you fight for? I fight for Germany.
Right.
I fight for Hitler. There were different factions division. I was either fighting for Germany and the people of Germany, or I was fighting for Hitler and the furthering of the Third Reich.
Right.
So there was a division.
Sure.
And many soldiers would not say that they fought for Germany, but when they were put to their tests, sometimes they would say, I fight for Germany and I fight for what German stands for.
Right.
Not what Hitler stood for.
And that's why the Germans had the Night of the Long Knives, where they murdered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of prominent German soldiers, people that were involved in police. They did a mass purge of all these people that they thought would fight for the German people and not fight for the Reich, for the 1,000-year Reich. Right. I really believe that there are members of our military and members of our police forces that will not stand for it. So it's important that as cop watchers, as activists, people that do what I do, that people that are part of Cop Block or Cop Watch or FTP chapters like my Film the Police Portland chapter, it's very important that we try and not make it an us against them mentality, because there are a few cops in the ranks that are afraid to speak up because of they don't know who's going to be on that violent call with them. They don't know if the guy, the sociopath, the operator cop, the guy that's there to take advantage of people, they don't know if that guy's going to be on the call with them, so they're afraid. I think it would be grand if we could figure out some way of making the cops that are good people, that are within the ranks of police forces, to be not afraid, to say, yeah, welcome, join the conscious revolution.
Well, we're seeing, I would say Portland's seeing a lot of reform from the time. Not too long ago, we were seeing a lot of violence similar to what's going on in Ferguson with the police officers here.
Especially against mentally ill and...
they did some changing. There's been some changes, and it's been very welcome.
Yeah.
In fact, I feel that Portland police have made great strides into making us feel safer.
I believe there are some positive changes made by the Department of Justice recommendations. There's still room for reform and positive change, but compared to a lot of other cities I've lived in around the country, Portland's use of force policy is pretty good. When Portland Police Bureau mess up, they mess up royal, like James Chassie or Kendra James or Keaton Otis, but it's compared to other cities that I've lived in, Portland's Police Bureau's use of force policy is pretty good,
Yeah, I would say that it's improved a lot. In the time that I've been here, it used to be people were saying, "Don't mess with the police here; they'll kill you." Now I say I feel more safer with the police here than I used to. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. More to come. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
FM News 101 KXL. This is Ground Zero with Clyde Lews on FM News 101.
Ground Zero with Clyde Lews.
888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Let's go to Jim in Washington. Hi, Jim. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing okay, I hope.
Yeah, I'm probably better than a lot of people out there in Ferguson and a lot of other places.
Yeah,
I guess my point, I was listening to your conversation with Jay just a moment ago, and I recently retired from the military. I was a security assistance officer in a number of countries that had a very difficult time in transitioning from communist authority. And one thing that was really important that I understood and learned was that the trust and faith in the institutions really made the difference of whether people survived or not. And you talked about the frustration. The frustrations here are so much less than what the rest of the world looks at. And the fact that we don't look, and that the organizers here that are leading the protests are basically infuriating and really bringing a lot of people to suffer, and it's undermining the institutions of the United States, undermining the institution of the state of law, and it is eroding it very dramatically, and it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
Well, what they're doing is they're hardening the resolve of the police state. I mean, I don't know if I mean, they are undermining law and they're doing all that, but that's what protests do anymore in this country. People are doing what monkeys do. They monkey see, monkey do with everything they're doing with regard to protests. Real action is not going to be from chanting. Real action is not going to be from siding with the bad guy. Real action is not going to be burning down the Walgreens or burning down any of the places in Ferguson. The real action comes when we find the perpetrators who are committing the crimes in Washington, we get a grand jury, and we indict them. Then we start seeing the real criminals going to jail that have caused the other criminals to decide that they want to play like criminals, and this is when we start seeing justice. But until then, we're going to continue to treat Ferguson and any other protest like a football game, where just because I say that I don't like the idea of having artillery being moved into an American city, that I'm siding with the thugs, the protesters, and I'm siding with the kid that tried to charge a cop. I'm not. What I am is I am saying that this is not healthy for any type of revolution or protest. This is just nonsense.
Well, it is nonsense. And, you know, our personal freedoms are rapidly eroding, but I wouldn't say it's based on any individual agenda, but it is based on a society that's changing so rapidly and technologically changing so rapidly that human beings are having a very difficult time adjusting to it.
And about a government that doesn't acknowledge the pain and suffering of its people.
Well, you know, it's not the government is we. People talk about the government, but this is the one place on the entire planet where we are the government.
In theory. You can't tell me, Jim, that you and I are the guys that can walk into the White House and do what we want because we are the government. We are not the guys that are going to be walking into the Capitol and making laws pass because we are the government. We have appointed people to officiate in our stead and work for us, and when they ignore us, they deserve to be ousted and put in their place. That is how government operates. But no, we have to burn down Walgreens to make a point. That's how bad it is in this country. We'll be back with more.
FM News 101 KXL.
Let me be clear. As a citizen and as president, Ground Zero is indeed essential on radio and is essential to who we are.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy.
I'm Clyde Lews, and this is Ground Zero. I must say it's a bit of a disappointment that I guess a few days ago we were watching television and kind of giggling at the fact that Charles Manson is getting married, filed for a marriage license, and he, if you remember, he was he talked about Helter Skelter. We talked about the race war, and he was saying that there would be a time where the black man would rise against the white man and there would be a race war. And as much as I hate to say it, there were a number of people who were telling me, of course it's a race war. What are you doing? You're avoiding the real. Well, okay. If you want to say it's a race war, fine. I guess it depends on which part of the political block you decide to chop on. But I'm saying whatever is going on here, race war or not, whether it's a war because people are fed up with the police state, or whether or not this is a race war, you understand this hardens the resolve of your government wanting to promote and produce more tightening and eroding of civil rights. But I'm sure you don't care. Those of you that are attacking my guest and attacking me, you just don't care about that, right? You don't care about whether or not your rights are going to be eroded away. You don't care that maybe curfews could be imposed. You don't care that maybe guns would be taken away eventually.
People seem to be addicted to cheerleading for their own enslavement. When we have a right-wing president, the right-wingers are, go after those animal rights activists because they're commie scum. And then when we get a left-wing president, people are like, we have to, it flip-flops. We get people cheerleading on the right when we get a left-wing president. People get cheerleading for the left when we get a right-wing president, and they cheerlead for their own enslavement.
Well, speaking of which, where else would you hear that this is a race war but on MSNBC? In fact, tonight with Lawrence O'Donnell, Missouri State Senator Maria Chappelle Nadali said of the riots after the grand jury announcement that this is St. Louis's race war.
That I'm greatly saddened, and I understand just the way my constituents feel right now. What we are looking at is no different from day 2 and day 3 and day 4 with the tear gassing and the anger. There is so much anger, and just for a moment, I do want to follow up on something that Joy and Rachel were mentioning a little bit earlier. Not only has this Mike Brown movement revealed the true intentions of people in police departments across the state, but I have to tell you that there has been systematic racism institutionally in state government and for decades, including my own state party. So what we are looking at right now is a symptom of racism that has been swept under the rug for decades. And I am so glad now that the truth is out, and I'm very grateful to your network for telling the truth and reporting the truth of what's going to go down in the coming days. People are angry and they are hurt, and they're trying to figure out how are they going to receive justice. And I will tell you that we are now in phase 3. Phase 3 is looking at our statutes that we have in law. When I listened to Bob McCullough earlier today, he didn't reflect on the point that we can change excessive force language that is in our statutes right now. In fact, it's very broad. We need to change several different sections of statute. And so that is what I plan to do. But right now, my community is hurting. They are in pain. They have been in pain before Michael Brown. Having to look at Michael Brown's body for 4.5 hours injured them more. I have constituents who have PTSD. I have constituents who have no hope. And